Good morning everyone, it's Catherine Jahar here. I hope you've all had a fantastic half term. Today we are starting our new set of training on EYFS Maths, and this has kindly been put together by Rachel Saville from Eastward. This is going to be split into two parts and I will share the second part with you later on in the week.
Hi everyone, it's Rachel here from Eastward. Today we are going to be exploring maths within the early years and looking particularly at nurturing mastery, language and thinking. Developing a sound understanding of mathematics when we are young is essential. Children's early mathematical understanding is strongly associated with their later school achievement. It has, therefore, a major impact on young children's educational progress and life outcomes. So I wanted to begin with this quote to highlight just how important mathematics is in the early years. Everything we do to support our children's mathematical development in the early years will have a significant impact on their educational progress, later school achievement and life outcomes. That's a powerful thought to begin with, but it's even more powerful when we think about what we as educators can do to make children's early mathematical learning as impactful as possible. The early years are important, not just for laying the foundation for children's conceptual understanding of mathematics, but also for shaping children's attitudes towards maths. Parents and educators' attitudes towards maths can influence their pupils' and children's mathematics achievement. So again, this refers back to us as educators and the significant role we play in the early mathematical development of our children. So we're just going to have a think about our attitudes towards maths and what they are and what they might convey to the children. So if we really love maths and we're really enthusiastic, the children are likely to feed off that. If we're less keen, although I'm sure we'll try not to send those messages to the children, we may not be as forthcoming in our interactions with the children in talking about maths because we may not be as confident. So our attitudes and approach to maths will have an impact on the children and will send messages to them. So with that in mind, it's important to remember that we want our children to be developing those positive attitudes. It's vital that they are having a go and not being afraid to have a go, and more importantly, that they know that it's okay to make mistakes. This is now part of the new early years curriculum for September 2021, so this is something that we really need to be focusing in on and considering how well we are enabling this and how we encourage the children to have that confidence to take risks and to not be afraid. So here you will see the adult interaction model. There are three elements to it, as you can see: the directed activities, the enhanced provision, and the continuous provision. We're going to look now at the role we can play as educators within those three elements. So within our directed activities, the adult focus within that is about leading the discussion, teaching discrete concepts of skills or knowledge, listening and responding to the children. And it's very focused, it's very clear, and it's very well planned and well resourced. Enhanced provision is where in the environment as adults you may be putting out some of your resources, your ideas, and then role modelling possible uses for them. You will then leave the children with time to explore and time to experiment and develop their understanding, and that enhanced provision is important because you're scaffolding and you're making that connection directed into the enhanced and providing possibilities that the children can then extend and use, moving from directed to enhanced provision. Your role within the continuous provision is about playing alongside the children, going with the child-initiated play, then using the resources within the provision to then sensitively support play and scaffold and respond, and give intervention and interaction at the right times to make sure the learning is happening at its optimum level, but that you're being led by the children and their agenda and less of our agenda, and asking thoughtful questions, open-ended questions that are going to enable the children to show you what they know. I just wanted to take a moment as a little reminder of the importance of the characteristics of effective learning, which underpin everything in terms of children becoming young mathematicians. We as adults should have our eye on that critical thinking, that perseverance, that resilience, that risk-taking, and that confidence to have a go. You can clearly see how they all underpin children's attitudes and how they will potentially be engaging with maths. Another great quote: effective practitioners are able to tune into, rather than talk at, children taking their lead and direction from what the children say or do. That is the importance that when you're in the provision with the children, it's about tuning into them and what conversations are taking place, tuning into the children's play, tuning into the children's agenda, and letting the children take the lead and going off what the children want to say and what the children want to do. And that's really key in interactions, particularly in the early years, but that should also continue into Key Stage 1. But it's not just us as adults giving instructions or trying to put our agenda of what we know can come out of an activity and really pushing that to the forefront. It needs to involve the children and they need to take a lead on it. It's our role to connect that learning and nurture the children applying what they know. We need to be using the correct vocabulary during our interactions and meaningful conversations about maths with the children. We need to be asking the right questions that are extending. We need to be making the right comments that encourage the children to extend their thinking and not limit them. We need to be promoting games and opportunities to apply their thinking, and we need to be having conversations to help the children sustain their thinking and explore it further. So now we're going to focus closely on language and vocabulary. So with addition, for example, there is a whole range of vocabulary that the children can be using and that we as adults can be using that is accurately linked to addition. It's important that a consistent approach is used across all staff in terms of the vocabulary being used when teaching a concept and exploring that with the children. So you can see there are lots of different words here. It's important for the children to be immersed in the different vocabulary, but it is also important for the children to start to understand the mathematical language and use the various words effectively. We as practitioners should seize opportunities wherever possible to promote mathematical vocabulary. So, taking advantage of when the children are lining up for lunch, for example, using first, second, third in line. When you're sorting out the fruit and milk, be having those conversations about having more than, fewer than, and also refining vocabulary. So if children are using the word big when actually they mean tall, how we go about refining that with the children, fine-tuning it so that actually they are using the correct vocabulary. And again, that takes us back to our confidence and subject knowledge and use of vocabulary and making sure we're aware of whether it's a potential misconception or if it just needs refining so that the children are clear that their language is being used accurately and that we're using our language accurately too. So rather than letting things slide, we're actually refining it in a positive way. So where might those authentic mathematical conversations take place? Well, they might include the role play, when they're doing some shopping, growing, building, games, or even snack time. These are just a few examples, but of course, these spontaneous conversations could happen quite literally anywhere, at any time. And it's about knowing that they're going to give rise to not just math learning, but mathematical conversation, and then considering us as adults, how we could go and support, scaffold, and intervene in the right way, sensitively, to make sure that the vocabulary is being used correctly and accurately. And that if we can extend it, and also we can unpick the journey and the maths talk and thinking that is taking place. We know the general rule in our practice already that questions that extend rather than limit are really important. That's not particularly related to mathematics specifically. Open questions that extend are generally what we are trying to achieve as practitioners all the time. So with regard to really promoting that mathematical thinking, these sorts of questions that you can see here are really useful. Lots of questions that involve language of counting, more than, fewer than, too many. Questions like, what could you try? What can we say about it? Because those sorts of questions and conversations are encouraging the children to generalise and begin to reason and to apply their learning in different contexts.
Thank you very much, Rachel. That was an incredible start to our EYFS maths training for this week. I'm sure you can agree there's some fantastic tips and ideas in there and some fantastic good practice that can be applied in all year groups. Stay tuned to later on this week for the second part of Rachel's training.